One thing I like to read is books about climbing, particularly the scary stuff like going up Everest and so on. I think I'm trying to convince myself that my oldest son really doesn't want to do that. Of course he does. But anyway, I like to read the books. Pretty pictures. Probably the most prominent person, well, the greatest mountaineer of our times is a man called, I don't think I say the name right, Ed Viesturs. It's a Latvian name, Ed Viesturs. He's done Everest 5 times, usually without oxygen, just goes up and down just like that. Amazing feat. But it's interesting what he says about climbing Everest. He said, I really feel it's cheating to do it with oxygen. He says, I like to climb the mountain just as it is, for what it is, and not reduced by my abilities. And of course, the analogy I want to make is between a fearsome but absolutely spectacularly beautiful mountain like Everest and life, which is the same thing. It's beautiful and it's fearsome, cruel, uncaring in a way, and yet that's what we live through. But a great mountaineer like Viesturs, his satisfaction wasn't just in getting to the top. I read about some of these expeditions, they really have somebody almost lift them up there. They have crowds of Sherpas, and somebody even tried to bring a TV up there. Anyway, life itself is a fearsome thing. And our problem as human beings is what we really want is to get satisfaction out of our life. Is we try to get with lots of oxygen. Lots of things that will assist us and help us. And it's true, you can get to the top, but you haven't had the experience of climbing a rock like that. The things we're doing all the time is trying to find those things that will assist us so that the rock won't seem so frightening. We just get up there in a hurry, get a look, and get down again. If we don't have direct contact with life, that means the willingness to experience its terrors as well as its joys. If we don't have that direct contact, we have no satisfaction. And that's why we tend to end up in Zen centers. And a life in which we manage to avoid terror, it's sad, but it's usually a kind of a dim life. It's not, you might say, not the real thing. I have to admit, we do talk a lot about anger at the center because it's those self-centered emotions, not just anger, of course, but fear, anxiety, jealousy. We all have a stream that we go through, including worry, which is born of all this. We love to worry. And all of those are self-centered. We're trying to look at life in such a way to squeeze something nice for us out of it. And we're trying to do it by our thinking, because thinking is at the base of all those troublesome emotions. If there's no contact with life, and it's one way to check your sitting, in case you're interested, just ask yourself at any moment, am I really in contact with my life? You'd be surprised how often it'll be, no, I'm not. I'm into my thoughts about it, including my hopes, my fears, my angers, my worries. I'm into all those things 70-80% of the time, maybe more. maybe less. But what we're trying to learn is how to be in contact with the very, very fearsome but precious thing that we have, which is our life. We don't want to do that. And that's why I want to climb the mountain just as it is. As it is. That means my particular pain, my disappointment, my lack of this, my not getting that, just as it is. And to be willing to go through a climb without oxygen. Now, I don't want to carry the analogy too far. Obviously, most of us would have no business being anywhere near an enterprise like climbing a mountain as high as Everest, but it's an analogy, and a good one. Some of us spend 20, 25 years in playing with disciplines like this or others. There are lots of them. And we fail to see what the one thing is we have to know. There's only one thing. We get all caught up in the traditions, the stories, the way things are done. For instance, at this center, do you do it this way? The other center I knew did it that way. It doesn't matter, see? It doesn't matter. Because in all true disciplines, disciple, learn, disciplines, learnings. In all true learning, there's only one thing you have to know. And I can tell you, and I will, but since you don't want to hear it, you prefer oxygen, it won't do it. But see, some of you are getting it, so I'm encouraged to take another little shot at this. You know, all of you are taking shots at it too, but I want to make it clear to you. There are lots of practices, they're all valuable. There are different centers, different ways of going about things, they're all valuable, but there's only one thing you have to know. And what is that? All of your training is to build the ability to do this. Just as people doing something hard, like running a marathon, easier than Everest, but you don't just run a marathon, you train for it. You have to develop a certain capacity. And to develop that capacity is what you're here to do. And you have to want to do it. It's not something that most human beings even want to do. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this. I've said it already 10,000 times. Lots of people are saying it. And we don't hear it for the very simple reason that we prefer a little help up that mountain, see? A little evasion. A little something, anything but to just get out in those lonely gales sometimes. And you could put many names on it. Last session I used the word stillness. Now you can misinterpret that. Today I'm going to use no self, and you can misinterpret that even more. But no self, and what you have to do to be a no self, is what you're here to learn. What I'm here to learn. Nobody finishes learning it. So what is this no self that we're, this ancient, often misused term? A person who is more or less a no self, their actions spring less and less and less and less from a self-centered motivation. Less and less and less over the years. It goes slowly. So, a no self doesn't mean somebody with no flaws, with no this, no that, but what has dropped away is a certain amount, at least, of self-centered motivation. And of course, that's why work on anger is so absolutely important, because anger shows us probably more clearly than some of the more subtle emotions how much our life is geared to anger at things that attack us or don't suit us, and sometimes it's at ourselves. Anger, we don't suit ourselves. See, that's a self-centered motivation too, to pick yourself apart. We have to learn, and we learn it slowly because it's hard to learn, how to counter that powerful force, driven of course by our core belief, call it ego, call it anything. And work with anger is not all there is, but all the self-centered emotions are the barrier to no self. That is a person who's running their life and they don't think about it. They just do it. I mean, it begins to be the natural way to live, as opposed to what we probably grew up learning. Now, to go through the years of practice means just one thing, that you have to turn away from the self-centered thoughts, notice them first, and turn away, and dwell where? In an absence of just self-centered thinking. It's purely physical, sensory, whatever word you want to use, just being here. Sounds so easy, doesn't it? It's not easy. It's the hardest thing in the world to learn to do. Sometimes we can manage 3 seconds. That's a lot. And the reason it's so hard to do is, again, extremely simple. We don't want to do it. We really think, quite sincerely, that our self-centered worry and push against other people, against ourselves, against circumstances, has to be done. Sometimes it looks like the only virtuous thing there is to do. It's hard, unless you begin to have a taste of it, to conceive of a life where you plan, you think when necessary. It certainly includes creative thinking, art, music, architecture, whatever. It includes all that kind of thinking. But when self-centered thinking turns up, and you can always tell it because of the little tightness that goes right with it, the tension, when that shows up, you turn away. And we don't want to turn away. There's the practice point. It's the only one you really have to master. And all techniques, all the hours of sitting, whatever you're doing, are to keep finding ways to encourage you and to help you, and also the person teaching it is also learning to do this. We don't want to do it. Just as simple as that. But if we are really persistent, really see the harm finally that we do if we don't practice like that, and begin to get a taste of it. That's what I call the turning. Once you get a taste of it, it goes faster. And it gets easier. It's not forever hard. It gets easier after a while. And a lot of you here are doing it. Some of you had a little taste of it. Some of you are working up to that quite persistently. Some are turning. But this is a lifetime enterprise. And even then, it's not that you get somewhere, but that's what your life's about. If you don't do that, you can accomplish all sorts of so-called meritorious things, and they will have no satisfaction. Because behind your accomplishment is a self-centered motivation of some sort, sometimes almost completely hidden. Sometimes it's extremely obvious, sometimes it's just buried. And one reason we sit is because nobody, I don't care who they are, sees all the ways that you're burying something. That's why we sit. Because in sitting, who knows how it works? I don't know how it works, but I know it works. Things get clearer. Things break open here and there. There's an ability to see that gets stronger over the years of practice. So let's go over that once again, because I don't want to say too much. I'm just trying to make one point clear, but I want to just pound away at that. Everything else may be valuable, but it's subsidiary to this. That one point. You have to see what you're doing. That's why we sit. Some people don't see what they're doing at all. But as we sit, it begins to dawn on us. Yeah, gosh, I'm really doing that. Can't believe I'm doing that, but I'm doing that. See, honesty. And when we see that, and begin to see the surge of thoughts that that's made of, that's the first step. You want to have it 1, 2, 3, sometimes remember it better that way. First, to see what's going on here. See? If something is really obscure, but you know you're troubled, you can put it in the form of a koan and let the koan wear you down. It will. You understand how to work with it. But for today, I'm just going to talk about the thoughts that spin and spin and spin. We like them, see? Because in our thoughts we can be important, we can be wonderful, successful, or we can be absolutely terrible. We like that too, some of us. We like to think how awful we are. The thoughts just spin. Once you see them, you don't have to rush, but at some point, see, that's where your life's on the line. Can you say no? And return to what? When you're sitting, just return to the reality of your life as it is. See? Am I in contact right now? Yeah, I see the rug. I see my hands. I see all of you. I'm in contact. See? But the minute, if I were to have time to do it, look around and think, I liked her hair better the way she wore it last week. I don't know. She doesn't really know how to do anything like that. We're gone. See? Right back into contact with life, which is nearly always purely sensory. Thoughts may pop up, just like here and there, but there aren't trains of thoughts that carry us away. And if the practice is maturing, most of life is spent in that, just being here, looking around, see what's up. See, because that's when you get clear, you see what to do then. Your functioning changes to some degree, I'm not saying. None of us here know enough about it to say it's perfect, but we function better. Okay? People say to me, yeah, but I experienced it for a minute. I'm not talking about a minute. I'm talking about staying like this for, if you can, for hours. But we're so anxious to get back to our thinking that usually the amount of time we can spend in this stillness, in this place of no self, is limited. And what develops over years of practice, if you don't do a lot of fancy business that isn't practice, is the ability to stay there grows. Now, in the history of our particular discipline, there have been a very few truly great Zen masters, but it's obvious in reading what they have to say, and in some cases it's fairly clear down of their lives, they spent most of it just working. Some of them were scholars. They thought all day, but they didn't think in a self-centered, emotional way. They were usually meticulous in what they did, and I don't think, except when they were thinking about what they had to think about, they thought about anything. They're just clear, looking around to see what's up. So. And if you met one, I don't think you'd know it. If he didn't have its robe on and all the things that go with it. But if you're with a person like that for very long, you know something. You don't know what you know, but you know something. Because there's compassion there. A person who's not at all caught in his own drama can see a little bit what goes on with other people. There's also a high level of functioning. Even though in the olden days, the things they functioned with were different. They don't have all the high-tech things we have now. But they would have done fine with that. This climber I talked about is noted for his meticulous care about every detail of what he does. Probably why he's still alive, just that every small thing was paid attention to. So how many people here didn't get what I said? I mean, if you had to say it, could you say it? Even just say it? Could you? I don't know. We'll find out. But, see, at first, when you practice like this, you can't do it. You don't have the ability. But as we sit, that ability grows. And if you're really paying attention and making, we can say practice is no effort. That's not true for a long time. It's a lot of effort. If you're doing your best, very slowly that capacity grows. Very slowly. And as it does, the whole field of your life alters, which many of you are well acquainted with. But the first step is to understand it intellectually. I mean, that's not true for all people, but for the kind of people that come to Zen centers, they're pretty bright. It's not the only way to learn, but for most people here, an intellectual understanding is a good idea. And then, day by day, the battle's on. It's a battle. It's not a matter of virtue. It's not a matter of conventional morality. And it's extremely difficult. And if you don't want to do something like that, fine. But many of you are waging this battle, and with things it moves like a glacier. It moves. All right, any questions? I mean, that's all I want to say. I don't want to fancy this up. I just want you to, I can't see who it is, but I see a hand. Yeah.
I think that's good for yourself. Do you ever at some point get, I don't know, some understanding of life and death, something a little more...
Get into life and death?
Well, an understanding or...
Uh-huh. Yeah, but how do you get there, Margareta?
Well, the way you said, I guess. But
See, when you reach a stage, when you're really in contact with life, who's the person that's going to better understand what life is? Somebody who's not or somebody who is? It's obvious. See? Now, people here have their little moments of seeing what life is. Of course, I don't pay much attention to it. I don't think it matters too much until your whole life comes into that kind of an area. But sure, we want to understand life and death. Life and death are of supreme importance. Time swiftly passes by. But I'll tell you, if you think you can get this by reading books or sitting down and thinking, then you're really wasting that precious time that's going by. We do want to understand the really basic questions. Who am I? What is life? What is death? Does this have any meaning? All those things come out of this kind of practice. But we trivialize things like that. If we don't truly practice, it's possible, I meet people all the time. Oh yes, I've been 25 years at such and such a place, and I've practiced for 20. No, they haven't practiced. I wouldn't say they haven't learned something. That's not true either, but this is a crucial matter. And to think we can understand something like life and death without, what is the saying, sitting with your head on fire or something like that?
Practicing diligently and eagerly as though extinguishing a fire upon your head.
Yeah, that's it. I never know this stuff. Practicing eagerly and diligently as though extinguishing a fire upon your head. Doesn't sound so easy, does it? No. It doesn't mean to be tense, but it means just you're giving up your life each second, see, for that clarity. And, yes.
When you say that when that self-centered thought and reaction comes up, we should turn away.
No, I said to turn away from the thoughts and turn back to where?
To the moment.
The actual experience of that anger, see? Which will be tension. The mind doesn't know the difference between whether you're being attacked by a real enemy. Say if somebody crazy's charged in here with a knife, we'd all be afraid and we'd all tighten up and maybe run, do something, jump out a window. I don't know what we do. The body senses you're in trouble, so it immediately tries to help you by pouring forth adrenaline and lots of other things, I expect. Body doesn't know the difference between that and you thinking, oh gosh, the stock market dropped so much today and I just don't know what to do. Should I buy or sell? Worry. What should I do? See, the poor body's listening. Oh, something awful's happening. Nothing's happening except your mind is going ticker, ticker. And everything tightens up. You see what I mean? Body doesn't know the difference. It's trying to serve you. When your body is tight with tension and you can't sleep at night, it really thinks you're under mortal attack. See? I told somebody this morning, I had a student once who was in a state of utter collapse because their washing machine stopped working. See, it depends on who you are. What you take is mortal attack, and the body's listening all the time, see? Oh, the poor thing. I've got to get ready. And it keeps the body in a state of tension a good deal of the time. It's not good for your health, if nothing else. The body doesn't know the difference. So what we have to do is to find those thoughts and just separate them off from the poor body. I've looked at you. I'm not suppressing you, but just stay over there. Then the body, after a little bit, is tight. But finally, there are no more of those thoughts coming in. See, oh, I guess she's not under attack after all. And it begins to let go.
Would it be correct to say that many of our emotional responses are very much a part of our primitive instinct for survival?
Sure.
And
Sure.
and at one point, like anger is a necessary response when you're being attacked.
When you're being attacked, really.
Greed was a response to feast and famine. All of these have a place.
But see, we're a prosperous country, see.
Yes, that's the point.
See, our bodies have also learned that we have to prepare for a big meal. You see what I mean? I know. See, but that's not true. We're not starving like somebody who might have a big meal every 3 days. You see what I mean?
But it's also true that our bodies will store fat, thinking that we will starve.
For a long time.
Even though we do have a meal coming. In other words, that the whole primitive mechanism is still...
Sure, there is a primitive mechanism. And it's fine to to protect ourselves. I mean, I'm not saying not to do that, but protect yourself from what? See? What you read in the paper? See? Or a real threat. For modern man, real threats are not of a primitive nature usually. Not always, but anyway, I don't want to take too long here. Bonnie?
Remember, was it Will Johnson? Is that the guy's name who gave that workshop? Remember how he put it? He sort of did it the opposite way. He said that we maintain this state of constant tension in order to maintain our false self.
Well, that's just what I'm saying. It's the same thing. Sure, the constant state of tension, our false self is the self that thinks it's under attack, see? Most people think they're under attack all the time. They wake up in the morning, oh, it's a cloudy day. How am I going to get this done? You know, oh, my kids, oh my this, oh my this. The whole day is a response to my self-centered notion of how it should be, and it isn't. And the body stays tense. There's no solution to the body unless we take the mind into account. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
You know, one thing that was just hitting me is I can't think of any better way than thought labeling to clarify the difference between, say, a fight or flight reaction to a real danger, like a wolf lunging at you, and the psychologization, you know, that until we see that it's thoughts that are triggering that adrenaline over and over, then we psychologize these built-in responses that don't have to have any emotion attached to them.
Yeah. But we're also conditioned for many years, and after a while the whole response gets glued together. It goes very, very, very fast. Not easy.